Epictetus was a philosopher. He lived in ancient Rome, and he was a slave. He wrote something that gets repeated a lot. He said, "Some things are in our power, while others are not." That's the line. It's a simple idea, but he built a whole philosophy around it, a way of thinking, and he built it while he was property, while he was owned. So that's the situation. A man with no external freedom, writing a manual for internal freedom, a guide for the mind, forged in those circumstances, in bondage. That's what we're looking at, how that works. Epictetus's blueprint came from his furnace. His life wasn't quiet study. It was a brutal, practical laboratory. He was born a slave in the Eastern Roman Empire. He was the property of a wealthy man. That defined his world. His body wasn't his own. His time wasn't his own. His social standing was a single, harsh label. Every day was the same test. What here can I actually command, and what is completely beyond my reach? For a slave, that line is drawn in the starkest terms. The philosophy he taught wasn't an abstract theory. It was a survival mechanism he lived. The core Stoic idea, the dichotomy of control, was daily practice. His master controlled his external circumstances, his physical freedom, his labor, but Epictetus began to observe a space no command could touch, his own judgments. His own desires, his own reactions to the events imposed on him. That's where his freedom was forged, the one place no one else could own. We may not face his specific circumstances, but we live with our own forms of unfreedom, the constant pressure of societal expectations, the tight grip of anxiety about the future, the stress of obligations that feel imposed. These can make us feel we're not in command of our own lives. So here's a question, a direct echo from that ancient furnace. Identify one single aspect of your life that feels completely outside your control. A demanding job, a difficult relationship, a health concern. Now ask a more subtle, more powerful question. Is my attitude toward this situation also outside my control? Or is there, in my response to it, a sliver of territory that belongs entirely to me? That question changes everything. If your greatest source of pain was also the key to your freedom. For Epictetus, that wasn't a theory, it was his reality. The principle he found, the dichotomy of control, that was the first crack in the wall. The tool he used to start separating himself from his circumstances. He said it plainly, some things are in our control and others are not. What's in our control are our opinions, our pursuits, our desires and aversions. Basically, our own actions. What's not in our control are our body, our property, our reputation, our command. Things that are not our own actions. For a man who was property, that list was brutally clear. His body wasn't his own. His reputation was a slave's reputation. His command over his day was minimal. Almost every tangible thing fell into the category of what's not up to us. Which meant the only territory left, the only sovereign ground, was internal. His opinions about what happened, his desires, his judgments, that's where he planted his flag. That's where he built his freedom, inside a cell. The chains on his ankles were real, but the chains on his mind, he realized those were optional. We don't wear literal shackles, but we have our own versions. A sudden job loss, the event itself, the manager's decision, the state of the economy, those aren't within your control. They happen to you, but your response, the story you tell yourself about what it means, the actions you take the next morning, the dignity you keep through it, that territory belongs to you. Or harsh criticism, the words someone chose to say, that's not within your control. They've been spoken, but your reaction, whether you take it as truth or look at it calmly, whether you let it ruin your week or take one small lesson from it, that is your domain. The external event is the chain, the internal response is the freedom. They are two different things. Learning to see the gap between them, that's the first mental shift. The most critical one, so let's make it practical. Right now, pause for a moment, bring to mind 3 current worries. They could be large or small. Anxiety about a future event, frustration with someone's behavior, concern about your health. Now take a mental pen and sort them. 2 columns. In the first, what is within my control. In the second, what is not within my control. The event itself, the other person's choices, the test result, those probably go in the second column. Your preparation, your communication, your self-care, your attitude as you wait, those go in the first. This act of sorting isn't about dismissing your worries. It's about reclaiming your agency. It's about seeing with clarity where your power actually is. Epictetus didn't just find this idea in a book. He excavated it from the hardest ground imaginable. And he left it as a map. The path to freedom always starts with one question. What here is truly mine to command? The fortress was built from one thing. Choice. The Stoics had a word for it, prohairesis, that ability to judge, to decide what something means. For Epictetus, that was the true self, the commander inside. It's separate from the body, from what happens outside. A master could order his limbs around, but he couldn't order this. Misfortune could take his possessions, but it couldn't take his choice about that loss. An insult could be thrown at him, but only he could let it in, to let it wound him. That's the final retreat. Later, another Stoic, the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, wrote about the soul as a citadel. A place so strong that even if the whole world broke in, the mind could stay undisturbed, true to itself. But that idea didn't begin with an emperor. It was made by a slave. It's what happens when you draw that line between what's yours and what isn't. The citadel is built on what's yours. Think of harsh criticism, unfair criticism. The words, the tone, the fact it happened, those are external events. They're outside the walls. The initial sting, that's natural, but then there's a choice. You can let those words storm the gates, let them decide your emotions, your worth, what you do next, or you can retreat, go inside the citadel. In there, you can look at the critique calmly. See if there's a useful grain of truth, apart from how it was delivered. If there is, you take that grain, leave the rest outside. If there isn't, you see it for what it is. Another person's opinion, and you let it stay where it belongs, in the realm of things not up to you. Your response, your next move, your peace of mind, those are defended inside. So where is it, this inner citadel? It's not a physical place, it's a state of awareness, the feeling of retreating to it. It might feel like a sudden pause, a conscious pause in the heat of the moment. The space between something happening and your reaction to it. In that space, you find your sovereignty, the realization that you are not your circumstances. You're the one watching them. That's the psychological freedom Epictetus mastered. He turned a total lack of control into the control room. But building this fortress, it takes more than understanding. It demands a specific kind of training, relentless mental training. The kind that turns philosophy from a comforting idea into a reflex, an unshakable reflex. Freedom starts with that pause between something happening and how we respond. That pause is the discipline of assent. It's what guards your inner space. For Epictetus, everything that happened to him arrived first as an impression, just raw data. The impression itself isn't good or bad, it just exists. The suffering, the anger, the fear that comes next, the moment we give our assent, the moment we attach a judgment to that raw data and accept it as truth. We see a traffic jam and think, this is a disaster, I'm going to be late, everything is ruined. The traffic jam is neutral. It's a line of cars, the judgment, this is a disaster, that's the story we tell. And we tell it so fast, we believe it instantly, we assent without question. That's where the distress is made, inside our own gate. Epictetus put it plainly. It's not events that disturb people, it's their judgments about them, and the quote goes on. So when we are hindered or disturbed or grieved, we should never blame anyone but ourselves. Our own judgments. He's not saying the event is pleasant. He's saying our power lies in not making it worse with a story we choose to believe. Think of it like this: you get a short email from your boss. The impression is just words on a screen, but instantly a judgment rushes in. They're angry with me. I must have messed up. My job is at risk. Your heart starts racing. Your stomach knots. You've assented to the worst possible story. You've let that judgment storm the gates, and now it's inside, disturbing your peace. The discipline of assent asks you to catch that judgment at the gate, to examine it. Is it true? Is it the only interpretation? Could the boss just be in a hurry? Could the message be neutral, just direct? By pausing to question the judgment, you withdraw your automatic assent. You reclaim that space between event and reaction. This is the daily training, moment to moment. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional, choosing which thoughts get to live inside. So here's a practical thing for today. Just for today, try to catch one automatic negative judgment. It could be about the weather, about a coworker's tone, about a small mistake you made. When you notice the thought, "This is awful," or "They're so rude," or "I'm so clumsy," just pause. Don't try to fight it. Don't even try to change it. Just note it. There's a judgment. I am assigning a story to this event. See it for what it is, a story, not a fact. This simple act of noticing creates that pause. The pause where freedom grows. It's the first step in retraining a lifetime of automatic assent. But this inner work, this gatekeeping, it doesn't happen alone. We live in a world of other people. Their actions, their words, they constantly send impressions to our gate, and our most common, most painful judgments are often about them. How they've treated us, failed us, or wronged us. So if the discipline of assent guards the gate, what do we do with the people on the other side, the ones whose actions feel like the source of our chains? Epictetus had this idea: what if you only wanted what you could actually have, and only tried to avoid what could actually harm you? He was a slave. Desire was dangerous for him. To want his freedom desperately, to ache for a different life, that was a path to misery, because those things were outside his control. So he didn't get rid of desire. He changed its direction. He turned it completely inward. The only thing to desire, he said, was to act with virtue right now, to want only what's in your power. Your own choices, your own judgments, everything else, you take it as it comes. It's not the goal. He did the same with aversion. We try to avoid pain, insult, hardship. But most of what we avoid is also outside our command. You can't avoid illness. You can't avoid rude people. Trying to is like commanding the sea. It's exhausting. It's futile, so he shifted that too. The only thing to truly avoid, he said, is your own poor judgment, your own failure to act with integrity. External hardship might come, but it can't make you worse unless you let it. That's the only real harm. This is the core of his handbook. It starts by saying freedom comes from managing desire and aversion correctly. Get it wrong and you're a slave to circumstance. Get it right and you're free, no matter your condition. Think about wanting a sunny day for an event. That's an external outcome. The weather isn't yours to control, so all day you're at the mercy of the sky. Sunny and you're elated, rain and you're devastated. Your state is chained to the clouds. Now reframe it. Don't desire a sunny day. Desire to handle whatever weather comes with grace. Desire to be adaptable. To focus on the people there, to find the joy available in that moment. That desire is for an internal state. It's a virtue. It's entirely within your power. The rain can't stop you from fulfilling it. In fact, the rain gives you the chance to practice it. The external event becomes irrelevant to your goal. So take a common desire for a promotion, for someone to like you, for a project to go perfectly. Reframe it. What internal quality would you need to pursue that well, no matter the result? If you want praise, want integrity instead. Want to do work you're proud of with or without the praise. If you want a conflict-free relationship, want patience. Want clear communication regardless of the other person's response. This shift doesn't mean you stop pursuing goals. It means you change what you're invested in. You invest in your character, not the unpredictable world. The outcome becomes a side effect, not the source of your peace. This is how he turned having no choices into the ultimate choice. To want only what you can command yourself, but that raises a question. If we accept externals with indifference, does that make us passive? Do we stop trying to make things better? Or is there a way to care deeply about the world without giving it the keys to your peace? The most radical acceptance isn't about fate, it's about purpose. Epictetus saw his slavery. It wasn't some cosmic mistake. It was his assigned role. His job was to play it with excellence, and that's where his philosophy shifts. It moves from a personal coping strategy out to a cosmic perspective. The Stoics called it living in accordance with nature, with providence. They saw the universe as a rational, interconnected whole. A single living organism. Every part has a place, every part has a function. From that view, our specific circumstances, our health, our social standing, they're not random punishments. They're not rewards, they're the raw material, the givens, what we've been handed. Our one task is to take that material and craft virtue from it. For Epictetus, the material was bondage. His role was slave. His task was to play that role, but to play it philosophically, to be the kind of slave who showed that external conditions couldn't define an internal life. He became a teacher not in spite of his past, but because of the authority it gave his words. He had lived the blueprint. That's why his famous metaphor resonates. Remember, he said, you are an actor in a play. The character is for the author to decide. The author may give you a short part or a long one, may cast you as a beggar, a lame person, a ruler. Your business is to act well the part assigned to you, but to choose the part that belongs to someone else. Your slavery was the part, how you played it was your art. This reframes everything. It turns resistance into creative engagement. Think of a difficult job you can't immediately leave. The long hours, the demanding boss, the bureaucracy, these are the props. The script of your current play, resisting the very fact of the role, lamenting you're not in a different play, it only drains your energy, makes you a poor actor. Accepting the role means you stop fighting the setting. You focus all your skill on how you perform within it. Can you act with diligence where others cut corners? Can you act with patience where others show irritation? Can you act with justice even when it's not required? The play isn't about the title on your door. It's about the quality of your character on this stage right now. The same applies to a challenging family dynamic or a period of poor health. These aren't curses to rail against. They're the current landscape, the specific conditions where your virtue must grow. A gardener doesn't curse rocky soil forever. They learn what can thrive in it. So here's a question. What's the role you're resisting in your life right now? Is it the role of caregiver, the role of someone starting over, the role of the steady, overlooked worker? How might accepting it, not with resignation but as your current material, change your approach? If this is your part, how will you act it well? This perspective doesn't demand you stay in harmful situations forever. It demands you find your freedom, your excellence within the situation you're actually in, because the only performance that ever matters is the one happening now. On this stage, with this script, and yet this raises the final test, the practical one. Philosophy is for the living room, not the lecture hall. How did these ideas hold up when the world turned cruel? For Epictetus, the theory met its ultimate test. In a moment of brutal physical reality, Epictetus practiced hardship. He didn't just endure it. That's the exercise of voluntary discomfort. It wasn't about punishing the body. It was training for the mind, inoculating the spirit against fortune's blows. Because if you live in constant comfort, you become fragile. You start believing comfort is a necessity, that luxury is a right, and then when life takes something away, it feels like a catastrophe. Your peace shatters. Epictetus knew this fragility from the inside. He had lived with nothing, so he would deliberately go without. He'd practice moderate fasting, not to harm himself but to feel genuine hunger. To know he could handle it, he might wear simpler clothing or expose himself to the cold for a short time. He was building a muscle, the muscle of saying to external conditions, "You are not my master. I can be content without you." That's how philosophy turns from theory into an unshakable reflex. Seneca wrote about this. He advised his friend to periodically live as if he were poor. To dress plainly, eat simple food, sleep on a hard bed. Why? To prove those conditions are not evil. To realize your happiness isn't stored in your mattress or your meal. By practicing poverty, you disarm it. You take away its power to frighten you. The goal is to look at everything you have and think, "I enjoy this, but I do not need it." My peace is built on something else, something internal. We can apply this in small, safe ways today. It's not about seeking suffering, it's about reducing dependency. Consider your relationship with social media, that constant refresh for likes and comments. That's a dependency on external validation, a modern slavery to opinion. A voluntary discomfort practice could be a 24-hour digital detox, to sit with the quiet, to feel the initial itch of boredom, of FOMO, and to realize your sense of self remains intact without that stream of input. Or take something physical like a cold shower for 1 minute at the end of your normal shower. It's a minor, controlled discomfort. Your instinct is to avoid it. But by willingly stepping into it, you practice commanding your reaction. You practice enduring something unpleasant without complaint by choice. You prove to yourself that discomfort does not have to mean distress. So here's a small invitation. Before this day ends, choose one tiny act of voluntary discomfort. It could be skipping that after-dinner snack when you're not truly hungry. It could be leaving your phone in another room for 1 quiet hour. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator. The act itself is trivial, the practice is profound. In that moment of choice, you are not a victim of circumstance. You are the author of a small, deliberate hardship. You are reminding your mind that you are stronger than your cravings, more resilient than your comforts. This is how we build the inner citadel, brick by brick, not in grand declarations, but in these quiet, daily exercises of will. And with this fortified mind, we face the final, most difficult frontier, not the loss of comfort, but the presence of other people, their actions, their judgments, their capacity to wound us. How does a philosophy of internal freedom handle the chaos of human relationships? Epictetus practiced something the Stoics called the view from above. It's a shift in perspective. You pull your awareness back, far back, until your immediate situation is just a tiny point in a vast landscape. For a man in chains, this was a form of liberation. A personal insult, a moment of cruelty from ground level, it fills your world. It feels unbearable, but from the height of a mountain or the distance of centuries, it shrinks. It becomes a speck, a single event in one life, on one planet, in an endless cosmos. This wasn't about dismissing pain, it was about contextualizing it. Seeing it within a frame so large that its power to overwhelm you diminished. Marcus Aurelius used this constantly. In his private writings, he'd remind himself to look at things from above. He'd picture bustling marketplaces, armies on the march, farms and weddings and funerals, all from a great height, seeing them as tiny, ant-like activity. He wrote that you can rid yourself of many useless things that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination, and you will gain a wide domain by embracing the whole universe in your mind. That's the goal, to gain a wide domain for your mind when your body's domain is limited. Apply this to a modern stressor, a tense work meeting where you feel undermined. In the moment your heart pounds, it feels like a crisis. Now perform the view from above. Imagine watching that meeting room from a satellite. See the building as a small block, the city as a grid, the continent as a shape on a blue planet. See your own lifespan as a brief line on the scale of human history. From that vantage, does the specific comment retain its earth-shattering weight? Its emotional charge begins to dissipate. It becomes an event, not an identity. This perspective doesn't solve the problem, but it drains the panic from it. It creates mental space to respond, not just react. The practice targets the ego's attachment. Our worries are so often about our personal status, our reputation, our tiny plot of land in the world. The view from above reveals that plot for what it is: a temporary, small, and interconnected part of an unimaginably large whole. For Epictetus, this was the ultimate answer to the question of slavery. From a cosmic view, the master was just another man playing a temporary role. The chains were physical facts, but in the story of the universe, they were minor details. His true self, his capacity for virtue and reason, was part of that vast, rational cosmos that could never be enslaved. Think of your biggest worry today. Hold it in your mind, feel its weight. Now, imagine you are physically pulling back. See yourself in the room from the ceiling. Pull back further, through the roof, seeing your town or city. Further still, until the country is a patchwork below you. Keep going until the earth is a blue marble in the black silence of space. Look back at your worry from here. How does its size change? Does its nature feel different? You haven't solved anything, but you may have changed the atmosphere in which the problem exists. You've introduced space and air and time. This is the tool Epictetus used to breathe when the world pressed in. He turned his gaze upward to remember he was part of something boundless. And from that boundless view, a question arises. If my small life is part of this vast whole, what is my fundamental duty within it? Not just to myself, but to the other specks sharing this fleeting moment. Epictetus could have learned to love his chains, not just endure them, not just accept them as his role, but actually love them, see them as the instrument of his freedom. That's the radical edge. Later thinkers called it amor fati, love of your fate. It's the ultimate psychological move. It goes beyond acceptance. It makes the obstacle into the path itself. He laid the groundwork with one instruction: seek not for events to happen as you wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go well. Notice the verb wish. Don't just tolerate, don't resign yourself, wish for it. That's the alchemy. It's looking at the circumstance you once fought against and saying, yes. This was necessary. This is the material I was meant to work with. For him, a slave, it meant seeing his bondage not as a tragedy, but as the essential condition that forged his philosophy. Without those chains, there is no handbook, no Epictetus as we know him. The trauma became the blueprint. This isn't pretending hardship feels good. It's recognizing the most difficult chapters often sculpt our strength. Our compassion, our depth. A failed project feels like a disaster. It brings disappointment, maybe shame. The standard reaction is to see it as a waste. A detour, amor fati, asks a different question. What if this failure was necessary? What if it had to happen to redirect you, to teach you a specific lesson about your approach? Your team, your true interests, a lesson a smooth success never could. That failed project isn't a scar. It's the pivot point that sent you toward the work you were actually meant to do. Think of a relationship that ended painfully. At the time, it feels like a loss, pure and simple. With the perspective of amor fati, you might later see it as the experience that taught you your own boundaries. That clarified what you truly value in a partner, that created the space for a healthier connection to arrive. The pain wasn't pointless, it was instructional. Part of your soul's curriculum. So look back at a significant setback in your own life, a job you lost, a goal you missed. Instead of framing it as a bad thing, try this. Brainstorm one single way that setback ultimately served your growth. Did it build resilience you later needed? Did it close a door so a better one could open? Did it teach you a critical lesson about trust or patience, or your own capabilities? Find the thread that connects that hardship to the person you are now. This is the final liberation he points toward, when you can look at your entire past, every twist and turn, every chain and every key, and not just accept it, but embrace it as your unique, necessary journey. You become the author of your life in the deepest sense. Nothing that happened to you is wasted. Everything becomes fuel. That's how a slave's fate is transformed into a philosopher's foundation, and it leads to a final, practical question. If our past is accepted as necessary, how then should we move forward? Into an uncertain future, what is the daily practice of a free mind, not just in reflection, but in action? Even in bondage, Epictetus taught we are agents, not just patients. That's the discipline of action. It's the counterbalance, because accepting your fate, loving your role, that doesn't mean you sit still. It means you move with purpose inside the space you actually have. Your body could be owned, your time commanded, but your intention, your effort, your character in doing your duties, that stayed your own. His philosophy was activist. It was about right action. A slave could act with justice by not lying about another servant, could act with courage by speaking truth to his master when it was prudent, could act with wisdom by doing his tasks with care, not with resentment. The external outcome, whether he was praised or punished, that was beside the point. The point was the quality of the action itself. Epictetus called this performing your social duties according to nature, and by nature he meant reason and our inherent fellowship with others. We're social creatures placed in a web. Our job is to play our part in that web well. So for someone in a restrictive job today, the discipline of action reframes things. You don't control the company's policy, the incompetent manager, the stagnant culture. Those are externals, but you control your diligence on the tasks you're given. You control your fairness toward colleagues. You control your personal integrity, doing what you say, not stealing time, not joining petty gossip. Your sphere might feel small, but it's real. And inside it, you exercise your humanity. Think of a nurse in an understaffed hospital. She can't control patient numbers, the budget, the systemic pressures. But she can control the gentleness of her touch with the person in front of her, can control taking an extra moment to explain a procedure calmly, can control her commitment to her own skill. Her virtuous action is in that focused, compassionate effort. The outcome for the patient's health isn't entirely in her hands, but the quality of her care is. That transforms the work from external demands into internal choices. Every interaction becomes a chance to practice a virtue. So here's the challenge. In your most constrained role, employee, family member, citizen, what's one virtuous action entirely within your power today? It doesn't have to be grand. Could be patient listening you offer a frustrated child instead of snapping. Could be thorough work on a report nobody may read. Could be a kind word to a stranger. Identify that one action. See it not as a small thing, but as the essential practice. That's how you build a life of character from the inside out, regardless of the walls around you. And it leads to a final realization that all this inner work, the discipline of assent, shifting desire, the view from above, the discipline of action, it isn't for isolation. It's for connection. Epictetus was a slave. In that world you had no voice. Words were something you had to spend carefully. Speaking without thinking, complaining out loud, arguing with an owner, that wasn't just pointless. It was dangerous. It could mean punishment or worse. So for him, silence wasn't weakness. It was a kind of fortress, a strategic one. It was the practice of temperance. One of the Stoic virtues, temperance, is self-regulation, command over your impulses, and the urge to speak, to correct someone, to defend yourself, to vent. That might be the most automatic impulse we have. Epictetus put it clearly. He said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. And he had a rule: only speak if your words are both useful and true. If they fail either test, silence is the stronger path. This restraint, it's not about suppression, it's about sovereignty. It's applying the discipline of assent to your own tongue. When someone insults you, the first thing is the sound of their words. The first judgment is to feel wounded, to craft a sharp reply. That's the impulse. The practice is to catch that reply, to stop it at the gate and ask, is my response useful? Will it improve anything or just make it worse? Is it true to who I am, or is it just my ego talking? Often the answer is no, and in that no there's a kind of power, the power to not hand over your peace of mind. Think of the modern version, an online argument. A comment you read that feels wrong, even offensive. Your fingers itch to type a reply. The impulse is to set the record straight, to win, but you pause. You apply the test. Will my comment be useful? Will it change this person's mind or just start a draining back and forth? Is it true, or is it mostly my frustration talking? Choosing to close the tab, to not engage, that's not losing. It's reclaiming your time, your mental energy. It's a modern act of Stoic temperance, the same thing with workplace gossip. That easy ritual of complaining about a colleague, joining in feels natural, expected, but stepping back, choosing not to contribute, that's an exercise of inner strength. It preserves your integrity, it keeps your mind clean from the drama. So here's a small commitment. Sometime in the next day, pick one situation where you'd normally react by speaking. A minor criticism, a provocative headline, a friend's frustrating story, and instead of speaking, commit to a period of conscious silence, just 30 seconds. A full minute. Don't plan your reply, just listen or just observe your own reaction. Notice the heat of the impulse, the story your mind is writing. By creating that space, you're not being passive, you're training your faculty of choice. You're reminding yourself that your voice is a tool, not a reflex. And in that quiet, you might find something, a clarity that the noise of reaction usually drowns out. Epictetus was owned, he was a slave, and his master was a teacher. That's the reframe. The person who owned him, that oppressor, was also a harsh instructor, a teacher of patience. In that view, the difficult people aren't interruptions to your peace. They're the curriculum for it, they're the resistance, the thing your character gets forged against. A wrestler doesn't get stronger alone, they need a partner. Someone to push them, to test their limits. Our antagonists are that. They're the sparring partners for our virtue. Marcus Aurelius did this, the emperor. In his private writings, he expressed gratitude, direct gratitude for the difficult people. He listed them by name. His stepfather taught him steadiness. A critic taught him not to be arrogant. The irritable ones, the ungrateful ones, they were his teachers. They showed him what patience looks like. They gave him a chance to practice kindness when he faced its opposite. He saw them as essential, sent to sand down his rough edges. It flips the script on conflict. It moves you from victimhood to apprenticeship. So when someone feels like an obstacle, a genuine obstacle to your happiness, you shift the question. You stop asking why this person is making your life hard. You ask what muscle this situation is forcing you to develop. A critical boss isn't just a source of stress. They're your trainer for emotional resilience, for clarity under pressure, for receiving feedback without crumbling. A frustrating relative isn't just an obligation. They're your trainer for tolerance, for setting boundaries with compassion, for practicing love that doesn't depend on agreement. The person isn't the lesson. Your response to them is. They hold up the mirror. You decide what you see and what you build in yourself to meet it. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It doesn't mean staying in harm. It means reclaiming your agency within it. Even if the only agency you have is to learn, and then to walk away with greater strength. So here's an exercise. Bring to mind one difficult person. Someone whose presence stirs frustration, hurt. Set aside the story of what they've done, just for a moment, and ask one question. What one virtue does this person give me the chance to practice? Through this friction, is it patience? Is it courage to speak my truth? Is it forgiveness? Is it the strength to disengage with grace? Name that quality. See that person as an unlikely coach, assigned to your personal growth. This perspective doesn't excuse their behavior. It liberates your reaction from being dictated by it. You're not just weathering a storm, you're learning to sail in it, and with that skill, the whole world changes. All its sharp edges become a kind of gymnasium. For the soul, slavery was a physical hardship. Anyone would want to avoid it. The Stoics had a name for things like that. They called them dispreferred indifferents. And the opposite things, health, a little money, a decent reputation, those were preferred indifferents. But the key word is indifferent, not to our comfort but to our moral worth. To our character, to whether we are virtuous or not. Indifferent means it isn't good or evil by itself. A Stoic doesn't claim pain feels good. They say it can't make you bad. The whip on his back was a dispreferred indifferent. It hurt, but the real evil, the only thing the Stoics called genuinely bad, was a corruption inside. Cruelty, injustice, cowardice, hatred. A free man in a palace could have those. A slave in chains could have them too, and the virtues, their opposites, could exist anywhere. Epictetus used his own life as the example. His body, his status, having no property. These were all dispreferred indifferents, severe ones, but they weren't him. He drew a clear line. He said the body was just a donkey, something to carry the mind. The true self was the part that chooses, that judges. That part could never be enslaved unless it gave up. So his freedom was a kind of redefinition. He made his worth, his identity, separate from all the things the world had taken. You can think of a modern version. Losing a lot of money is a dispreferred indifferent. It causes stress, practical trouble, but losing your honesty to cover it up, lying or cheating, that's the true evil. The money is external, the compromise is internal. One changes your situation, the other changes who you are. We do this constantly in smaller ways. We act like our reputation, our job title, how we look are essential to our happiness. We tie our identity to them. When they're praised, we feel good. When they're threatened, we feel attacked. We've confused a preferred indifferent with the good itself. So here's a question to sit with. What indifferent in your life do you treat as essential? Is it your social media followers, your professional awards, your physical shape, your bank balance? See it for what it is, a preferred thing, but not the source of your goodness. Your character exists somewhere else. This doesn't make the preferred things pointless. It just puts them in their proper place as tools, not as the foundation. And it shows that the deepest loss isn't an external one. It's the loss of your own integrity. That's what Epictetus defended, the only ground he really owned. Night fell in Rome, and a slave who was also a philosopher looked back on his day. This was his classroom, the quiet hour. He would turn what happened into something he could use. For Epictetus, philosophy wasn't about lectures. It was reflection. After the noise, after all the demands, he went inward. He asked himself questions. Not what he'd acquired, what he'd learned, not what happened to him, how he met it. This practice, the Stoic evening review, was how he kept his inner citadel standing. It was daily maintenance. It was how he maintained his freedom. Seneca, the Roman statesman, another Stoic, he wrote about this ritual in his letters. He said sleep should find you already self-aware. He would end each day questioning his own soul. What bad habit did you cure today? What fault did you resist? In what way are you better? The questions were gentle but firm. They focused on the internal landscape. He was looking at his judgments, his reactions. How he used the day's events. This wasn't about punishment. It was an honest accounting, spotting where he gave his assent too quickly to a disturbing thought, or where he confused a preferred indifferent for a true good. Each day's events became case studies for his own progress. We can take this and make it a simple, modern template. A 3-question review, just a few quiet minutes before sleep. First question, what did I do well today for my character? This focuses on your sphere of control. Did you act with patience in a trying moment? Did you choose integrity when a shortcut was tempting? Did you listen when you wanted to interrupt? You acknowledge that small victory. It builds the muscle of virtue. Second question, where did I let an external event disturb my peace? This is the discipline of assent in review. Identify the moment your tranquility was shaken. Then trace it back. What judgment did I attach to that event? Did I decide a traffic jam was a personal insult? Did I interpret a brief email as a sign of looming disaster? By naming the judgment, you separate the event from your story about it. You see the chain, cause and effect inside your own mind. Third question is forward-looking. Based on this, what is one small thing I can practice tomorrow? This turns insight into intention. If you saw that you rushed to anger, your practice might be to take 3 deep breaths before responding. If you saw that you sought validation online, your practice might be a 1-hour screen-free evening. The goal isn't perfection, it's purposeful progression. This nightly review, it transforms daily life into a continuous curriculum. The difficult coworker, the delayed train, the unexpected bill, they all become lessons. Not in what the world is doing to you, in how you are learning to meet the world. It's the process of being your own teacher and your own student. For just one night, try this 3-question review. Find a quiet moment. Ask what you did well for your character. Ask where you handed over your peace. Ask what one small step you can take tomorrow. You might find, like Epictetus did, that the most profound education happens in the silence. After the day is done, Epictetus had lost everything. He was left with the basics, something to wear, something to eat, a place to sleep, that was it. Everything else was a luxury, and he had no claim to luxury. This wasn't minimalism by choice, it was just his reality, but in that bareness something became clear. The noise of wanting things just faded away, and in that quiet he could see a simple truth. Happiness isn't about having more things, it's about using things correctly. And using your own mind correctly so it isn't dependent on them. He taught that a person needs very little, some water, simple food, shelter, and the ability to think. Everything else is extra. It's just opinion, not nature. We don't suffer from not having enough. We suffer from wanting too much and calling those wants needs. Now look at today. Our world is built to make us want. A new phone comes out and the old one suddenly feels broken. A new trend makes last year's clothes feel wrong. You see other people's lives online and it feels like a standard you have to meet. It creates this low hum of anxiety, a feeling that you're always behind. That you never have enough. Your peace becomes something you schedule for later. I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when I buy the house, when I have that car. You tie your contentment to something you don't have yet, and you lose your present moment paying for it. Epictetus, having nothing to lose, saw that trap. He said freedom is easy, just learn to want what you already have, decide what enough is and stop there. This isn't about giving up comfort, it's about not letting comfort control you. If a simple meal is enough, then a feast is a bonus. It's not a requirement for your joy. You can try this. Look around your home. How much of what's there has a real purpose or gives you real pleasure? How much is just there, taking up space because of habit or some old desire? Choosing what stays based on use and meaning, that's a modern kind of Stoic practice. It's telling the world of things, you don't own my worth. It's the same with clothes. Does each piece work for you, or are you just maintaining a full closet? Having fewer choices can feel like a deep breath, so here's something to consider. Think of 5 things you believe are essential for your happiness right now. Be honest, your phone, your car, a certain salary, your coffee, a group of friends. Now look at each one. Ask, is this a real human need, for survival, for basic flourishing? or is it a want made by culture or habit or comparing myself to others? Which one of these, if it was gone, would actually hurt my ability to be good, to think clearly, to connect? The point isn't to feel bad about having nice things. It's to see them clearly. They are preferred indifferents, nice to have, but your freedom, your ability to be a decent person, to have peace, that isn't inside them. Seeing that loosens their grip, you start building your contentment on the one thing no one can take, your own point of view, and from that solid place you can face the last, biggest hardship. Not losing things, but losing time, and the losses that time always brings. Epictetus suffered, but his teachings had this wit to them, a sharpness. He wasn't speaking from grim resignation. There was a lightness in his words, a playful irony mocking human absurdity. That humor wasn't an escape, it was a sign. It showed his mind was free. Able to step back and see the comedy in our self-imposed dramas. When you're no longer identified with your circumstances, you can laugh at them. You can laugh at the part you're playing. At how we make mountains out of molehills. One of his students recorded him saying something cutting about people who worry over reputation. He said, "Are you not ashamed to be more concerned about the foulness of your breath than the foulness of your mind?" That's not a cruel joke, it's a mirror. He's pointing out our misplaced priorities with a smirk. We'll fret endlessly about a social slight, a stain on a shirt. A critical comment online, these external trifles, while ignoring the internal clutter, the envy, the anxiety, the dishonesty that actually shapes our lives. His laughter is a tool for distance. It creates space between the event and our ego's investment in it. Think of the last time you had a minor meltdown over a technological glitch. Screaming at a frozen computer screen as if the machine were a personal adversary. From a slight distance, that scene is objectively funny. A highly evolved primate raging at a silent box of circuits. Epictetus would chuckle. He'd ask, "Is your peace really so fragile that it depends on this?" So here's a practical application. Next time you catch yourself spiraling over a trivial inconvenience. A spilled coffee, a missed turn, a long line, try a dose of gentle self-mockery. Narrate the scene in your head as if you're a comedian describing a sitcom character. Oh, look at him. His entire morning is ruined because a paper cup tipped over. The fate of nations hangs in the balance. This isn't about dismissing your frustration. It's about refusing to grant it a gravity it doesn't deserve. By choosing to see the absurdity, you reclaim your perspective. You remind yourself this, too, is a preferred indifferent. Not a catastrophe, so reflect for a moment. What recent situation could you choose to see as a little absurd, rather than purely tragic? Was it an argument over whose turn it was to load the dishwasher, treated with the solemnity of a peace treaty? Was it an obsessive refresh of a package tracking page, as if you were commanding a military supply line? Find that small thing, and just for a second, allow yourself to smile at the elaborate production your mind can create. That smile is a declaration of independence. It means the world's chaos hasn't fully captured your inner citadel, and from that place of lightness, a question arises. If we can laugh at life's irritations, how do we meet its true blows, the inevitable losses that time brings to every single one of us? Forget the years of servitude. Just the next right action, that was the practical core of it, to look at a lifetime of bondage, the whole weight of it that would crush a person. So Epictetus broke time into pieces. He didn't ask a slave to endure decades. He asked for this duty right now, done with care. He asked to meet this moment right now with reason. The entire future, with all its fear, shrinks down to the work in front of your hands. The entire past, with all its pain, it fades behind one question: what can you do next? This is the Stoic art of presence. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire, he gave himself the same instruction. Confine yourself to the present, he wrote. You can endure anything if you break it into now. You can bear any burden if you only lift it for this minute. The anxiety isn't in the task, it's in the projection, the story of all the tasks that might come after, the dread of the whole thing. Think of a modern parallel. A looming work deadline, a project so large it feels paralyzing. You open the document and your mind races to the end, to the presentation, to the criticism, to the mountain of work in between. That projection creates the panic. It makes the first step feel impossible. The Stoic move is to blindfold that forward-looking fear, to say, my entire world for the next 25 minutes is this one paragraph, or this one spreadsheet, or this one email. Nothing else exists. The deadline in 2 weeks is a phantom. The meeting next month is a story. The only real thing is the sentence you're writing right now. You confine your effort, your attention to this tiny square of time, and in doing that you reclaim agency. The project doesn't own you. You're just engaging with the one piece that's actually in front of you. This applies to any daunting chapter, caring for a loved one through a long illness. The weight of that can feel unsustainable if you carry all the tomorrows at once. But if you reduce it to this single hour, to giving this medication, to preparing this meal, to sitting quietly together, the burden becomes bearable. You aren't a caregiver for a year. You are a person offering comfort in this moment. So here's an instruction. Pick one small, nagging task you've been avoiding, clearing a single drawer. Writing a difficult opening line. Set a timer for 5 minutes, just 5, and for those 5 minutes, your entire universe is that drawer, that line. If your mind wanders to dinner or a worry from yesterday, guide it back. You are not doing a life's work. You are performing this one action with full attention right now. When the timer stops, you may continue or you may stop. The result is almost secondary. The practice is everything. You've just trained your mind in the most vital skill Epictetus knew. The skill of finding freedom inside a single, focused moment. And from that anchored place in the now, you build something unshakable. They could break his body, but never his will. Not unless he allowed it. That was the final ground. For Epictetus, the only thing a person could truly own that was invincible was a well-formed character. The Stoics had a word for this, prohairesis, the faculty of choice, your moral purpose. It's the core self you build decision by decision, and it has this one property. It can't be taken, not by a master, not by poverty, not by sickness, not by what anyone says. The whole system of slavery was meant to erase personhood, to turn a person into a tool. And yet, inside that, Epictetus used philosophy to build an identity for himself, self-defined, based on virtue, on reason, on how he chose to meet each moment. That identity couldn't be stolen. It existed in a place no whip could ever reach. That's the absolute core of psychological freedom. It's not freedom from circumstance, it's freedom within circumstance, secured by the integrity of your own character. He put it in stark terms, I must die. But must I die groaning? I must be imprisoned. Must I whine as well? I must suffer exile. Can anyone stop me from going with a smile, with good courage and at peace? The event itself, death, prison, exile, those are the facts. They're not up to us, but the manner, the attitude, the character we show in facing them, that is entirely our domain. That's where invincibility lies. You can think of a modern parallel, the pressure in a corporate environment to cut corners, to fudge numbers, to go along with a quiet dishonesty for profit or promotion. The external forces are powerful, the potential reward, the fear of being ostracized, the pressure to conform, they can feel inescapable. But a person who's built a character where honesty is non-negotiable, they possess something unshakable. They might face ridicule, they might be passed over, they might even lose their job, but they cannot lose their integrity, not unless they willingly surrender it. The loss is external, the self-respect stays internal, intact. That's the invincible possession. Or consider someone standing by an unpopular belief in their community. The social cost is high, disapproval, gossip, exclusion. But if their character is built on the principle of speaking their truth, then the external noise can't corrupt that core. The principle itself becomes the refuge. So here's a question, an echo from that ancient classroom. What is one core principle of your character that you consider non-negotiable? What single value would you hold to, no matter the cost? Is it a commitment to kindness, even when met with rudeness? Is it fairness, even when it puts you at a disadvantage? Is it the courage to be authentic, even if it means standing apart? Identify that one line you will not cross. That line is the beginning of your own invincibility. It's the boundary where the world's power ends and your sovereignty begins, because a will aligned with virtue is the one thing fortune can never truly conquer. He worked for his freedom, but he didn't stake his peace on it. That's the Stoic reserve clause, a quiet phrase you add to everything, fate permitting. It's the art of striving with your whole heart while holding the result in an open hand. For a slave, this wasn't philosophy. It was survival, to hope for manumission, to work toward it, but to tie your entire worth to that one external event. That was building your home on a cliff's edge. The reserve clause built a foundation under that hope, a foundation that would stand no matter what the world decided. Epictetus lived a paradox. He taught how to strive without being shattered by failure. You act as if everything depends on you. You plan as if everything depends on circumstance. There's no contradiction there. It's just a clear-eyed view. Your effort is yours. The outcome belongs to a wider web of causes. Seneca put it beautifully. He said to prepare the mind each morning, not just for the day's plans, but for all the ways those plans could be interrupted. You tell yourself, I will sail to this port unless something prevents me. I will complete this deal unless some difficulty arises. This isn't pessimism. It's inoculation. By rehearsing the possibility of obstacles, you disarm their power to devastate you. Your ambition stays intact, but it's no longer brittle. Think of a job interview. You research the company, you practice your answers, you pick your clothes with care, you commit fully to the preparation. That part is yours. Then you walk into the room with a statement held in reserve. I will offer my best self in this conversation, and I will accept whatever result unfolds. That doesn't make you passive, it makes you calm. It separates your performance from your peace. The interviewer senses that calm, that lack of desperate need. It often becomes your greatest strength. Without the reserve clause, the whole event is a referendum on your value. Get the offer, you're worthy. Get rejected, you're not. That's a terrible weight to carry into a room, and it shows. With the clause, you enter as a professional presenting your skills. The hiring manager's decision is data about their needs. Not a verdict on your soul. Your worth was never on the table. So take a goal you have now, a fitness target, a creative project, a difficult conversation. Write it down with the reserve clause built in. I will strive to complete this marathon with the reservation that my health and the day's conditions aren't mine to command. I will write this chapter to the best of my ability with the reservation that its reception isn't in my power. I will speak my truth with kindness, with the reservation that the other person's reaction is their own. This framing doesn't reduce your effort, it liberates it. You're freed from the choking grip of a specific result. You can pour your energy into the work itself, which is the only part you ever truly owned. And when you do that, you find a strange truth. Ambition and tranquility aren't enemies. They can be partners, but only if ambition understands its proper place. In the realm of reason, a slave and an emperor meet as equals. That was the radical core of Stoic thought. Epictetus was a slave. By law, he was property, not a citizen of Rome. But he taught there was a deeper law, the law of nature, and by that law he was a citizen of the world, a cosmopolitan, citizen of the cosmos. Your truest belonging isn't to a nation or a class. It's to the human family, bound together by a shared capacity for reason. For a man who was owned, this wasn't just comfort, it was revolution. It put him on the same rational footing as his master. The master could command his body, but in philosophy they stood as brothers. Both had logos, that divine spark of rationality. This perspective gave Epictetus a dignity no legal document could give, and no chain could take away. He belonged to a community far greater than the household he served. He taught his students to see everyone this way. He said, "If you attend to the matter rightly, you blame no one. You flatter no one, you praise no one, you accuse no one, you do nothing against your will. You regard everyone as your kinsman, everyone as a brother or sister." Children of Zeus, that was his phrase, meaning we all come from the same source, endowed with the same fundamental nature, your boss. Your neighbor, the stranger serving your coffee, the politician on the screen, each is a fragment of the same universal reason, wearing a different costume, playing a different part. When you look past the costume to the shared humanity beneath, judgment softens, connection becomes possible. Think of the most divisive figure in your feed, someone whose views feel alien, even offensive. The Stoic exercise is a mental subtraction. Strip away the political label, the job title, the inflammatory rhetoric. See for a moment just a human being, a creature who, like you, seeks happiness and avoids pain, who, like you, is using their capacity for reason, however flawed you find its application. This doesn't mean you agree, it means you recognize a common starting point, a shared membership in a fragile, reasoning species. This is how cosmopolitanism becomes a practical tool. Not a lofty ideal, it's the decision to have a conversation where you listen, not to defeat an opponent, but to understand a fellow citizen of the world. So a challenge for this week: initiate one conversation where you consciously look past the social role. With a delivery person instead of a transaction, offer a genuine thank you. And a question about their day with a colleague from a different department. Ask not just about the project, ask what they find meaningful in their work. In a discussion with someone of a different belief, pause before rebutting. Ask what life experience led them to that perspective. Seek the reason behind the position. The goal isn't conversion or even consensus. The goal is to affirm in a small, real way that before we are any of our labels, we are reasoning beings, sharing a brief moment on the same planet. This was the ultimate social freedom Epictetus claimed. He could not choose his master, but he could choose to see his master as a brother. And in that choice, the entire architecture of power was quietly undone. Epictetus would rehearse the whip in his mind before it ever happened. That's the Stoic practice, premeditatio malorum. Premeditating future hardships. It sounds dark, like dwelling on what could go wrong, but for them it was a kind of sunlight. It exposed fears to take their power away. It's not about expecting the worst, it's about removing surprise. If you've already visited a difficult scenario in your imagination, calmly, its arrival can't ambush your peace. Seneca practiced this. He was a wealthy man. He would set aside days to wear plain clothes, eat simple food. He'd tell himself, this is what poverty is like. He wasn't punishing himself, he was inoculating himself. He wrote that by doing this, a person could reach a state where nothing could be taken from them. He called it the poverty of the rich. The rehearsal made potential loss feel familiar and less terrifying. The shock is what breaks us, the feeling that this wasn't supposed to happen. Premeditation corrects that. It whispers this too is part of life, and you can meet it. For Epictetus, a slave, the rehearsal was constant. Punishment, humiliation, loss, that was his daily reality. By walking through those scenarios in his mind, he wasn't being pessimistic. He was building a reflex, so when hardship came, his first thought wasn't, why me? It was, this, I have considered this, now how do I meet it with character? You can apply this in a mild way. It doesn't require imagining catastrophe. Start with a realistic, moderate adversity, a professional rejection for a role you want, an unexpected car repair. Instead of pushing the thought away anxiously, invite it in. For a calm 2-minute rehearsal, sit quietly, picture the event happening, see the email arriving, hear the mechanic's estimate. Now, watch yourself in that scenario. Not as a victim, but as a person of character. How would you breathe? What would your first rational thought be? What practical step would you take next? How would you protect your core values, your integrity, your patience through it? The goal isn't to feel the full sting of the emotion, it's to observe the event. And affirm your capacity to navigate it. You are rehearsing your response, not the pain. This practice builds a resilience. It creates a buffer between the event and your reaction. When a similar challenge arises in real life, there's a faint recognition, a déjà vu of strength. You've been here before in your mind's safe workshop. And you already know the way through, so here's an invitation. Before this day ends, spend 2 minutes. Choose one realistic, moderate adversity you quietly fear. Picture it occurring, then picture yourself meeting it, not with superhuman stoicism, but with simple, human dignity. Focus on one virtuous action you could take within it. This small mental rehearsal is how you forge the armor before the battle. It turns the unknown into the manageable, and from this place of prepared calm, a deeper question emerges. If we can rehearse meeting loss with character, what then is our duty toward the very things we stand to lose? Slavery killed the man Epictetus was supposed to be. And what was left was the philosopher. He was never going to have a reputation or wealth or any kind of standing. Those doors were closed. That total loss, it was brutal. But it performed this strange service. It stripped away every external layer, everything a person might use to say, "This is who I am." There was no family pride to uphold, no career to climb, no public image. He was left with the most basic question: what am I when all of that is gone? The answer wasn't out in the world. It couldn't be. It had to be built from the inside. His identity became something he created, based on one standard, moral purpose. The Stoics called it living according to universal reason. Aligning your character with the rational principles of nature, not with the shifting opinions of the marketplace. For him, this wasn't a preference. It was the only ground left. His social ego had died. The person who remained was defined not by what he owned, but by how he chose. That's the counterintuitive gift hidden in powerlessness. When you can't define yourself by your achievements, or your possessions, or your status, you have to find a deeper definition, one that nothing outside can take away. You see echoes of this now in experiences that feel like small ego deaths, a sudden job loss after decades. That title was a core part of your story. Your answer to what do you do when it's gone, there's a silence. A similar hollowing can come after a long relationship ends where you were a partner, or after leaving a belief system that gave you a ready-made identity. These moments are painful, but they clear the ground. They force that same question. What remains when that story ends? The answer, if you build it, can be more authentic, more resilient. It might be a passion you set aside, a sense of self-worth untethered from performance. A simple commitment to kindness without recognition. The old identity was given by the world. The new one is authored by you. So consider that. If you lost your job title, your following, your possessions tomorrow, what would remain? Strip away the labels you use to introduce yourself. Look past the roles you perform. Parent, professional, provider. Who is the person performing them? What principles guide you when no one is watching? What brings you meaning that isn't tied to an outcome? This isn't about worth, it's about essence. The answer points to your own ground, the place where, like Epictetus, you can build something circumstance can't erase. This inner citadel, once built, faces its test not in loss but with others. How do you maintain this self-defined integrity while living in a world of constant friction and judgment? His master controlled his hours, but Epictetus controlled his now. That's the shift. His body, his schedule, those belonged to someone else, but his attention was a space he could still rule. The Stoics viewed time as the one thing you can't get more of. More valuable than money, because once it's gone, it's gone. And still, we talk about it like it's something that happens to us. We say the meeting wasted my time, or I lost an hour scrolling. As if something took it from us. Epictetus would question that. He'd say, who gave your focus to the meeting, who offered your mind to the screen? The meeting might have been required. The scroll might have been automatic, but your mental focus during that time, that was yours to direct or to give away. His freedom was built there in that tiny choice again and again. Doing a task he didn't pick, he could still choose where to put his awareness, on his irritation with the work or on the exact motion of his hands, on his anxiety about what's next or on the feel of the rope he was holding. That's the real control, not over your schedule, but over your mind inside that schedule. Consider someone now, their day cut into half-hour slots by a calendar they didn't make. Calls all day, constant alerts, a list that never gets shorter. It feels like your time belongs to the job, to the clients, to the next demand. The Stoic response isn't to walk away. It's to take back ownership inside each slot. For these 25 minutes, this call is your world. You put your full attention there, not half your attention with part of you in your inbox. You listen, you engage, you decide that for this set period, your mind is here entirely. When it's over, you make a clear shift. You own the next block just as completely. Even if it's a dull chore, you own how you do it. You do it with focus, or you treat it as practice in staying steady. The outside timetable might be set by others, but the quality of your experience inside it, that's yours to make. So try this. Look back at 1 hour of your day, any hour. Ask, how much of your attention did you actually steer? How much was taken by your own thoughts, dwelling on some past conflict, fretting over a coming task? How much was given to outside pulls, the automatic phone glance, the TV left on in the background? Be direct about it. The point isn't to reach perfect focus. That's not possible. The point is to see the difference, to see where you, maybe without thinking, let go of your own mind. Seeing that is how you start to take it back. Because a life is just a series of nows, and whoever rules your now rules your life. This discipline of attention leads to the last, most private use of his thinking. Not just handling time, but forming who you are through the way you explain your own story. Epictetus took his own life's poison, the fact of being owned. The physical hardship, having no power in the world at all, and he turned it into a kind of medicine, a universal one. That's the final shape of his blueprint. The suffering wasn't a detour, it was the direct fuel. The intense heat of his situation forced a clarity. Most of us never have to find that clarity. When everything outside is taken from you, you're left staring at the one thing that remains, your own mind. That's where it started. The trauma forced the reality of the dichotomy of control. He had to see what was his and what wasn't, because the line was drawn with a whip. From that brutal clarity, he built an inner citadel, a fortress of character nothing outside could storm. And from inside that safety, he could re-evaluate every desire, every aversion. He could turn his wants completely inward toward virtue alone. The result was a freedom so robust it didn't need pleasant circumstances. It was independent, forged independence. He gave us the formula. He said every difficulty in life presents a choice. You can see it as an obstacle, or you can use it as a stepping stone. Look at the obstacle, he taught, and see it for what it is. Then find the advantage in it, the lesson, the strength it demands. The thing blocking your path becomes the path itself. This pattern echoes beyond that ancient classroom. History is full of people who followed a similar blueprint. A musician loses their hearing, and from that silence, they compose symphonies that redefine an art form. An activist faces imprisonment. They use the isolation to write letters that mobilize a nation. Someone survives a profound health challenge, and they channel that hard-won perspective into comforting others. The raw material of their suffering was unique. The alchemical process was the same. They took what was meant to break them, and they used it to build something that could not be broken. A purpose, an art, a deeper compassion. This isn't about glorifying hardship. It's about recognizing a truth of human psychology. The most transformative insights often grow in the soil of our deepest struggles. The resilience we admire in others was usually earned in a private furnace. So here's a quiet space for reflection. Look back over your own life. Identify one past difficulty. It doesn't have to be monumental, a period of loneliness, a professional failure, a personal betrayal, a time of significant fear. Now, with the gentle distance of hindsight, ask a new question of that chapter. What strength did it force you to develop? What insight did it reveal about yourself or others? An insight a smoother path might never have shown. Did it teach you patience? Did it show you who your true friends were? Did it clarify what you genuinely value, separate from what you were told to want? That strength, that insight, is the alchemical product. The gold refined from the raw ore of that experience. It's now a permanent part of your inner citadel, a stone in your foundation that was paid for with genuine struggle. This is how we participate in the same transformation Epictetus mapped out. We can't choose all that happens to us, but we can choose again and again to be alchemists of our own experience. Epictetus gained his freedom, and he didn't pursue wealth or political office. He opened a school, a modest place, and the people who came to learn, they weren't the downtrodden. They were often the privileged, young men from powerful families, like Arrian, the historian, who would later serve the Emperor Hadrian. They sat at the feet of a man who had been property. They took notes on his words. That reversal holds something. His authority didn't come from a title. It didn't come from pedigree. It came from the evidence of his own life. He wasn't teaching a theory from a scroll. He was teaching a path he had walked, step by step, out of bondage into an unshakable peace. His credibility was his transformed existence. When he spoke about freedom, his students weren't hearing an abstract concept. They were looking at a living example, a man whose inner sovereignty was so complete that his past as a slave no longer defined him. It just informed the power of his message. The lessons we have today, the discourses, the handbook, they exist because Arrian wrote them down. He captured the conversational tone of the teaching. These aren't dense philosophical treatises, they're dialogues, answers to real questions from students struggling with anger, fear, ambition, philosophy as a tool for daily living. Passed from a man who used those tools to build his life from the ground up, it proves the blueprint was communicable, it was effective, it could be taught to anyone regardless of station. The student from a senator's house could learn the same lesson in freedom from the former slave, because the lesson was about an internal condition, not an external one. We often look for guidance from those with the most impressive titles, the most followers, the loudest platforms, but the most transformative teachings often come from a different place. They come from those who have been tempered by life's fires, who speak from a place of hard-won resilience, not just intellectual understanding. Their authority is quiet. It's in the calmness of their presence, the consistency of their character, the way they meet hardship without being shattered by it. So a question to sit with. Who in your own life teaches you more by their example and their resilience than by any official title? It might be a grandparent who carries a history of quiet endurance, a colleague who navigates chaos with integrity, a friend who has faced profound challenges and emerged with a deeper, gentler wisdom. These are the modern echoes of the freedman teacher. Their classroom isn't a lecture hall, it's the way they live, and the lesson isn't in their words alone. It's in the proof that their way of being is possible. Your wrist buzzes and your hand moves. That reflex, that's the chain now. Epictetus had a master who owned his body. We have 1,000 tiny masters who own our attention. Algorithms built to captivate, platforms built to monetize our focus, a constant stream telling us who we should be. That's the digital slavery. It doesn't hurt the body. It does something else. It colonizes the mind. It fragments the present moment, pulling you away from the life in front of you and into something curated, something reactive. The craving for a like, the anxiety of a silent inbox, the hollow scroll through someone else's highlight reel. These are modern forms of bondage. They make your sense of worth contingent on something external, on unpredictable validation. A slave's value was set by his owner. Now your value can feel set by an unseen crowd. Epictetus would see this. He'd point to the same line he drew in the dirt. What's in your power and what isn't? The impulse to check the phone, that's an impression. The notification itself, that's an external event. But your assent to that impulse, your judgment that you have to see it now, that you might be missing something vital, that's where your freedom is won or lost. The inner citadel isn't just for tragedy, it's for the torrent of trivialities. Every ping is a test of your gatekeeping. Do you let it storm the gates and command your focus, or do you keep your attention on the task, the person, the quiet moment that's actually yours? The Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort fits here. It means stepping away from the device that feels like a limb, creating a digital Sabbath not as punishment but as training. To prove to yourself that your peace isn't in that little screen, that you can be bored and in that boredom find a deeper kind of thought, that you can be unreachable and in that space remember who you are when you're not performing for an audience. So a Stoic digital practice, it starts with the discipline of assent applied to headlines and feeds. Before you click, pause, ask, is this information useful to my life or my character? Is it true or is it designed to provoke my fear or my outrage? If it fails, either test, scroll on. It continues with curation. You have the power to unfollow accounts that stir envy or anxiety, not to avoid but to guard your inner peace. It culminates in scheduled disconnection, one evening a week or 1 hour a day where the devices are off, not in another room where you can feel them calling, but truly off. In that hour, you practice being a full citizen of your own life, not a subject of the digital empire. Here's a challenge. Tomorrow, designate a single hour as your digital Sabbath. 1 hour where you silence the notifications and put the screens away. In that hour, choose one present task. It could be reading a physical book, taking a walk without headphones, having a conversation where you make eye contact, or just sitting with your own thoughts. The goal isn't productivity. The goal is to reclaim your prohairesis, your faculty of choice over your own attention. To feel for 60 minutes what it is to have your mind be your own sovereign territory again. In that quiet, you might just hear the sound of your own freedom. No, it doesn't justify oppression. That's a crucial point. Epictetus was writing from a place of personal powerlessness. His focus was on inner freedom, how to stay human when the world tries to take that away. It's a manual for survival, for transcendence. It was never meant as a plan for social reform or to justify the systems that create those unbearable conditions. The goal is to create unbreakable people, not compliant ones. Someone with a secure inner citadel isn't a passive observer. They're a potential force for change. They operate from calm strength, not from reactive anger. You can see this in history. Seneca was a Stoic, and he was deeply politically active. He advised Nero. He used his philosophy not to withdraw, but to engage. His detachment from the rewards of court life, that inner freedom, gave him a clarity. It gave him the courage to counsel for the public good. So inner stability can be the foundation for courageous action. It keeps you from burning out in rage or collapsing in despair when you face long-term challenges. Think about the difference in practical terms. A traffic jam is a perfect Stoic scenario. The event is outside your control. Getting angry changes nothing. The wise response is acceptance. Use the time, practice patience. That's using the tool correctly. Now consider systemic discrimination, an unfair policy. A biased law. To practice Stoic acceptance there in the same way would be a misapplication. Accepting a traffic jam is about managing your reaction to a temporary, impersonal event. Accepting systemic wrongs as just the way things are, that's a failure of moral responsibility. Here, Stoic resilience serves a different purpose. It gives you the fortitude to engage in the long, frustrating work of change. Without being personally destroyed by setbacks, your inner citadel becomes a base camp. You campaign from there, you protest, you educate, you reform. It lets you face opposition without hatred, endure slow progress without losing hope, separate your worth from the rejections and the delays. So the nuanced view is this. The dichotomy of control isn't a command to ignore the outer world. It's a map for identifying where your energy is best spent. Your emotional reaction to an injustice is within your control. You can choose not to be consumed by bitterness. Your decision to take a stand, to use your voice, to work within your sphere of influence, that is also within your control. The outcome isn't. You work for change because it's right, not because you're guaranteed victory. This is how the freed slave and the active senator are connected. One built an inner freedom no master could touch. The other used that same inner freedom to navigate the halls of power without being corrupted. Both were agents, one of internal reclamation, the other of external engagement. So bring it to a quiet moment. Look at the challenges in your own life, in the world. Ask a two-part question. Where is the situation like a traffic jam, a circumstance I can't change, where my peace depends on managing my response? And where is it like a broken system, a circumstance I may not control fully, but where my integrity demands I work for change, however small my part might be? The answer to that is where your own blueprint takes its next shape. You draw the line first. You accept the fundamental split. Your true self, your mind, is one thing. The circumstances around you are another. That's the foundation. You look at any challenge and you ask, what here is actually mine to command? Then you build the walls. You guard the gate of your judgments. You catch the stories you tell yourself about events. You pause before you agree with them. It's not what happens. It's what you tell yourself about what happens. That's what shapes your peace. Third, you redirect your energy. You turn your desire inward. You want only to act with virtue right now. You turn your aversion inward. You avoid only acting against your character. You stop chasing external outcomes for happiness. You start investing in the quality of your choices. Fourth, you embrace your role. You practice amor fati, the love of your fate. You see your specific circumstances, even the painful ones, as the raw material you've been given. To craft a life of character, you stop fighting the script. You focus on acting your part with excellence. Fifth, you act with virtue now. You confine your power to the present moment. To the task directly in front of you, you do the next right thing with full attention, regardless of the noise of the past or the uncertainty of the future. Epictetus wrote about this. He said, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. It begins with a vision of your own character. It's fulfilled by the daily, disciplined actions that make that vision real. You can use these 5 steps as a checklist for any significant life challenge. When you feel overwhelmed, return to step 1. Draw the line again. When you feel reactive, return to step 2. Guard your judgments. When you feel desperate for an outcome, return to step 3. Redirect your desire. When you feel like a victim, return to step 4. Embrace your role. When you feel paralyzed by the scale of it all, return to step 5. Act with virtue now. So here's a quiet question. Looking at these 5 steps, which one feels the most difficult for you to practice right now? Is it accepting what you cannot change? Or is it consistently guarding your inner reactions? Is it wanting less from the world and more from yourself? Or is it loving the path you're actually on? Identify that single, sticking point. That's precisely where your next practice begins. That's the stone waiting to be laid in your own unshakable foundation. Epictetus showed it could be done. His life is the evidence. He went from being owned to being a philosopher. That wasn't an accident. It was a choice made every day. A choice to follow certain rules. You don't need physical chains to understand confinement. That tension before a hard talk. That old grudge you keep thinking about. The vague worry about what comes next. Those are your walls. They might not be made of iron, but they hold you in just the same. The point isn't if they exist. It's what you decide to do inside them. That's when philosophy becomes something you build. It leaves the book. It becomes something you do. First, you have to see your main constraint. Be honest, but don't be harsh. Is it this need for everyone to like you, so every comment matters too much? Or is it a bitterness toward someone, a story that just repeats and takes your attention now? Or maybe it's a fear of messing up so strong you never start. You have to name it, put it on paper. This isn't to criticize it, it's to see the landscape you're in. The place you need to free. Once you see that landscape, pick one practice, maybe two, from everything we've talked about, not a list, just one or two. What matters is doing it, not how clever it is. If your constraint is worry about tomorrow, your practice could be the evening review, looking back to see where you let a thought about something unreal take your calm. If it's bitterness, your practice could be the view from above, stepping back to see how small that hurt is inside the whole long story of people. If it's wanting to control everything, your practice could be the reserve clause. Adding, if nothing prevents it, to your plans and trying hard only with what you do, then make it solid. Write a plain sentence of what you'll do. It doesn't have to sound good. It has to be clear. My control is how I respond to my coworker. I will practice by waiting 3 breaths before I decide what their message means. Or, my control is how I spend tonight. I will practice by leaving my phone in a different room for 1 hour. That sentence ties the idea to a real action. It makes philosophy something you do. So here's the ask. Stop for a minute. Right now, take any paper or a note on your screen. Write down one small Stoic action you will do by tomorrow night. Make it so easy that skipping it feels harder than just doing it. That's your first stone. The act of writing it down is you taking charge. It's you choosing to be the builder, not the one who's locked up. Epictetus didn't get free all at once. He built it, choice by choice, in the space between one breath and the next. Your plan starts with the sentence you write now. Epictetus built a kind of freedom that outlasted Rome. His life shows something. The worst constraints outside you can create the deepest freedom inside you. He didn't wait for his situation to change. He changed how he stood toward it. He turned the key from the inside. This isn't about just enduring. It's about taking something back. It says, don't change the world first. Change how you meet it. Find a sovereignty nothing can give you and nothing can take. Epictetus said it. No man is free who is not master of himself. That self-mastery, that command, is the real fortress. It stands on 3 things: knowing what is yours and what is not, guarding your judgments at the gate, and then the courage to take your fate and use it, to make it the material for your character. These aren't just old thoughts, they're tools for anyone stuck in a situation, a habit, a story they keep telling. It doesn't start with a big move, it starts with a quiet question. Where can you start building that inner citadel now? Maybe between an email and your reply. Maybe in choosing to want less from the world, more from yourself. Maybe seeing a difficult person not as a block, but as a teacher. Your answer to that is the first stone.